Hello friends, today's topic is learning theories. This is the part 1 of the topic. Let us begin now. As a teacher, at one point or the other, you may have asked yourself why the teachers are taught theories of learning. Though you know that the knowledge of learning theories may not be necessary for every lesson you teach. But if you have known the theories of learning, you can make a valuable decision about your teaching techniques and know why some techniques and methods promote better learning than the other techniques and method you follow. You may ask yourself how learning takes place, and you may also be worried about your teaching results. So, to have a better teaching results, you will look into the learning theories. Different psychologists have viewed learning in different ways, and hence accordingly they have generated different notion about its nature and the way learning can take place. And therefore, there are different learning theories like behavioristic theory, cognitive theory and constructivism. The aim of this video is to explain the nature and development of learning according to behaviorism, which believe that learning is an association between stimulus and a response. Yes, you may wonder how this is possible. So, we will look into behaviorism to find how an association between a stimulus and response yield a better learning. Under behavior theories, learning has been explained as a change in behavior of an organism through a conditioning process that occurs between a stimulus and a response. Behavior theories has been championed by G.B. Watson, E.L. Thunderk, Ivan Pavlov and Skinner. Basically, there are two types of conditioning which can bring about change in behavior or which can bring about learning as given by behaviorism. These are classical conditioning or respondent behavior, operant conditioning or operant behavior. Let us now examine classical conditioning or respondent behavior. Classical conditioning was given by Pavlov, who was a physiologist by profession. He studied digestion in the dog. He also investigated the cause that led to the flow of saliva into the mouth of the dog. It is a reflex activity controlled by autonomous system of the dog. So, Pavlov was interested in knowing what brings about salivation in the dog. This forms the basis for understanding respondent conditioning. Let us see the experiment done by Pavlov. It goes like this. First, the dog was kept in the conditioning chamber for some times. When the dog has settled in the chamber, a bell was rung when the meat powder was presented. This procedure was repeated many times. Now, the dog has learned that whenever the bell rings, meat powder is presented. So, now whenever the bell rings, the dog salivated. This means that the dog is conditioned to salivate whenever the bell is ring, though the meat powder is not presented. Now, let us understand this with the help of diagram. What happened before conditioning? Unconditioned stimulus, that is the meat powder, give rise to unconditioned response, that is salivation. Now, during conditioning, neutral stimulus, that is the bell sound, is kept with the unconditioned stimulus, that is the meat powder, giving rise to unconditioned response. This is repeated many times. Now, the conditioning takes place. What happened in conditioning? Neutral stimulus, that is the sound of a bell, is now conditioned to give rise to conditioned response. So, conditioned stimulus is the sound of the bell and the conditioned response is salivation, resulting in condition of the dog to the sound of the bell to give salivation. Now, let us go through the significance of classical conditioning. The first significance of classical conditioning is that it is a simple form of learning and it depends upon the behavior of the respondent, that is the behavior of the organism, how the organism behave to the given conditions. Second is the classical conditioning is also helping in learning of emotional reactions. By classical conditioning, students can be taught to control their emotions. They can be conditioned to control their emotions according to the situation. Number 3, classical conditioning helps in developing positive attitudes towards study among the students by the teacher. Teacher can help student to have interest in studies and enjoy study by adopting the method of classical conditioning. Fourth is classical conditioning help in building positive association between the teaching activities and learning. Whatever teaching activities is going on, teacher has to associate the student with it and help in learning of the activity. Thus, classical conditioning plays a very important role in developing personality in the students, developing positive attitudes towards studies in the student, as well as holistic development of the student. It is one of the important tools in the hands of the teacher. The second form of conditioning is operant conditioning. Skinner, a Harvard psychologist, first studied the phenomenon of operant conditioning. For this, he created operant boxes. In this experiment, he used a rat and a pigeon. In operant box where the rat was used, a lever was provided which the rat can manipulate by pressing, and in the box where pigeon was used, a key was provided for packing. In actuality, lever or key are the devices that activated by the organism on the basis of positive reinforcement. Hence, positive reinforcement enhances the lever pressing or the key packing behavior. In this kind of learning by the animal, voluntary acts are involved. These behavior are controlled by the central nervous system of the animal. Therefore, they can be learnt without unconditioned stimuli. Thus, operant behavior in contrast to the respondent behavior is not a physiological or emotional response to something that happens in the person's environment. Rather, operant behavior are the actions that a person uses to meet the demand of the environment. Now, let us see the significance of operant conditioning. Number 1, operant conditioning play an important role in shaping the person according to the social system. It helps the person to accept the custom beliefs of the society and lead a very happy social life. Number 2, operant conditioning also help in shaping the desirable behavior in the students through programmed learning, personalized system of instruction, and sometimes certain psychological disorder can be cured by the principle of operant conditioning. Some mental disorders can also be cured by using the principle of operant conditioning. Third, operant conditioning helps in attitude formation and change in behavior among the student. The positive attitudes formation can take place by using the principle of operant conditioning by the teacher. Number 4, operant conditioning is also used in businesses where perks and praise are given to the employees so that they can give a very productive results. In this video, we have discussed concept of learning as given by behaviorism. Under behaviorism, learning has been explained as a change in behavior of an organism through a conditioning process that occurs between a stimulus and a response, as we have seen. We have seen classical conditioning and operant conditioning. In classical conditioning, a neutral stimulus is paired with another stimulus that elicit a reflex response, as we have discussed. And in operant conditioning, the organism operates upon the environment in order to satisfy some of its needs, leading to learning. Here we complete the highlights of behaviorism. Now let's start with MCQ. Question number 1. Which theory believes learning as an association between stimulus and response? Answer of question number 1 is B, because according to behaviorism, learning is an association between a stimulus and response. Pavlovian conditioning or stimulus response conditioning is associated with which conditioning? Answer of question 2 is C, because classical conditioning is also known as Pavlovian conditioning. Question number 3. Which conditioning help in programmed learning? Answer of question 3 is D, because principle of operant conditioning have been utilized in shaping desirable behavior through programmed learning. Question number 4. Operant conditioning is the term used for which conditioning? Answer of question 4 is A, because operant conditioning is called as instrumental conditioning by the Skinner, as this conditioning occurs due to the consequences of action produced by the animal.